Putin's Terminator tanks move 2 miles from Ukraine as US warns tens of thousands could die in days if Russia invades. Russia has moved Terminator tanks to just 2 miles from the Ukrainian border, new video shows. The move is the latest firepower being masked by Vladimir Putin, and it comes as the US has warned tens of thousands could die in the days following an invasion. Footage shows Terminator tanks being moved towards the Ukrainian border credit, east to west. New satellite pictures are said to show several Russian troop camps on the Ukraine border credit, since 2020. Russian trucks and tanks were seen marked with the Z symbol. Footage shows convoys of Russian military hardware, including missiles and tanks, being moved to the Belgorod border region. Terminator tanks, which are bristling with weapons and designed for fighting in cities, are seen in a video for the first time heading towards the border on a train. They are capable of hitting lightly armored enemy vehicles, other tanks and even helicopters and low-flying aircraft. The short-range all-weather Tor air defense system was visible, while a Russian mobile military hospital is seen in Shebekino, near the frontier. According to grim U.S. intelligence reports, 200,000 troops and 500 warplanes are within striking distance for an invasion at any time. American officials who have obtained Russian planning, they say, calls for an overwhelming intensity of fire that would result in mass carnage. "We were told to expect tens of thousands of casualties in the opening days," one unnamed official said, The New York Times reports. Separately, Russia staged major naval war games in the eastern Mediterranean in a possible bid to stretch NATO resources as Moscow closed much of the Azov Sea, close to Ukraine, for drills. It comes as new satellite images are said to show Russian battle groups heading to the border, and NATO has warned cities across Ukraine could be blitzed in the imminent attack. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Moscow's decision to keep the force indefinitely made him more worried than ever. He said, "Everything we're seeing suggests that this is dead serious, that we are on the brink of an invasion. Until the tanks are actually rolling, and the planes are flying, we will use every opportunity and every minute we have to see if diplomacy can still dissuade President Putin from carrying this forward." French President Emmanuel Macron pleaded for peace in a 2-hour phone call with Mr. Putin last night. Early today, Mr. Macron's office said Putin and U.S. President Joe Biden had agreed in principle to a summit on the crisis, but it can only be held if Russia does not invade Ukraine. But the Kremlin blamed Kiev for the escalating crisis, with a chilling statement on provocations of the Ukrainian security forces after fresh clashes in the disputed Donbas region. NATO fears Putin will use alleged attacks in Russian-speaking areas as an excuse for a fully fledged assault and occupation of the whole country. Downing Street said they underscored the need for President Putin to step back from his current threats and agreed next week would be crucial for diplomacy. Earlier it was reported Russia has issued orders to low-level battle commanders stationed with a huge force on Ukraine's eastern frontier. Washington spies reckon 75% of the conventional Russian army is within striking range, along with 500 fighter and fighter-bomber aircraft. U.S. intelligence now believe the order from Russian High Command has been given to proceed with an invasion, reports CBS. Russian forces outnumber the Ukrainian defenders, intelligence sources said, reported CNN, as the bulk of Putin's armies are now within 50 miles of the border. The U.S. has also shared intelligence with allies that not only Kiev but cities across Ukraine could be targeted, including Kharkiv, Odessa, and Kherson, reports Bloomberg. It comes after pictures showed Russian tanks and armored vehicles marked with the letter Z moving towards Ukraine's border today. In yet another ominous sign of looming war, vehicles were understood to have been marked with distinctive white letter inside a square box to avoid friendly fire once action begins. He has 200,000 troops, along with tanks, artillery and armored vehicles, surrounding Ukraine. The intelligence says Russian troops have received orders now to proceed with the invasion, said CBS national security reporter David Martin on Face the Nation. Earlier Mr. Johnson warned illogical Putin is heading for disaster and faces a bloody war if he goes ahead with the feared invasion. Russia announced it was keeping 30,000 troops indefinitely in Belarus, 3 hours drive north of Kiev, going back on a promise they would leave after recent drills. Mr. Johnson has threatened to impose economic sanctions on Russia should it invade Ukraine, but said it may not be enough. The PM said, "We have to accept at the moment that Vladimir Putin is possibly thinking illogically about this and doesn't see the disaster ahead." Another battle group deployment, near Belgorod, was said to be on the move towards Ukraine. Credit, Reuters. Another satellite image shows a battle group with helicopters and troops in Belgorod, Russia. Credit, Reuters. Russian tanks move during military drills in Belarus as tensions rage. Credit, AP. Civilians trained to defend themselves from Russia in Ukraine. Credit, AP. People evacuated from the separatist regions in eastern Ukraine. Credit, Reuters. Russian Marines carry out war games in Belarus. Credit, AP. Putin has been accused of trying to stage a fake crisis in a pro-Russian breakaway eastern region of Ukraine to give a bogus excuse to attack. The two separatist regions are accusing Ukraine of planning a major offensive against them. Russian officials have also said that Crimean volunteers are moving in to help protect the LPR and DPR. Shelling has been reported across the region as Ukraine, Russia and the separatists point fingers at each other over the clashes. Both separatist groups ordered mass evacuations on Friday as they accused Ukraine of planning a wide-scale attack, including alleging Kiev was going to blow up a chemical plant. Western intelligence officials have repeatedly suggested that Vlad could use a false flag, a staged attack or threat to give them an excuse to invade. Named Anton Mazanyuk, he confirmed that Kiev intends to use all its strike power in the forcible seizure of the Donbas, said a report. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said, "Every indication indicates that Russia is planning a full-fledged attack against Ukraine."